Bonji Vakorja, Eimear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 190. And as is customary, I start with a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiakon ar fud na crinne. Gamara Shiakon in our jaili agus in our jirha. Ganairi lin lenarkid garmaka. Gamuj buikus jeev, jeha chivtaka is spirit quivtaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. For peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see, through our fear of each other, a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoyed the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that her swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So you're all very, very welcome. Let me see where people are. Northamptonshire, Denmark, New Zealand, High River, Canada, the Vale of Glamorgan, lovely. There's a few from Calgary. And wind chill from I hear minus 30, minus 20 in beautiful. It's 6 degrees here in Ireland and kind of wet and damp. Feels colder, I'm sure. Wonderful to see you all. Where was it people from? Okay, so you're all very, very welcome. Well, how I know about the temperature in Canada is because we're going there this evening. And let me introduce my guest to you, Andrea. Andrea, you're so welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
So we have somebody from Gisborne, New Zealand, and southern Brazil, Massachusetts, Berlin, Richmond, Virginia, near Longford. Wonderful to see you all here. So tell us, what's it like in Calgary for you?
Well, it's pretty cold today. Probably about minus 20, I think was what the temperature was this morning when I left for work. So yeah, it's a bit snowy and cold, but it's a lovely, bright city. Calgary has a lot of sun, so we're really lucky here to be able to enjoy that, especially in the dark winter months when it can feel like there's not enough light all around. Calgary is situated sort of in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Western Canada, and it is sort of anchored by two beautiful rivers that run through it. So we've got the Bow and the Elbow, and they intersect close to the center of the city. And those are the two sort of lifebloods that run through our city and provide us with our water. Of course, we're a Canadian city and we're in the West, so we're fairly new, I guess. I mean, not like new, but there isn't the same history that I think that other places might have. So I feel like that's reflected in the types of buildings we have, and it's reflected in how the city has expanded. Like you see in a lot of the European cities, like these sort of streets that you think, how does that even make sense? Like they're moving all over. And Calgary's like basically structured in a grid. Right? So but we're very lucky to have beautiful natural landscapes all around where we live. So like I said, the Rockies, it takes about 45 minutes to drive into the mountains to the west. We have a lot of farmland and like all around the city, to the east, to the north, right? There's quite a lot of farmland. We have hoodoos, right? Like sort of like almost a deserty climate in one of the pockets in Alberta. So we have a lot of varied landscapes, which I feel very fortunate to live around.
Yeah, I noticed when I was there last summer, how flat everything was in Calgary, and able to see, the horizon miles away. And it's interesting, there's Sean McCann is here and Janina is here. So there's And Jane, so there's, you have a few supporters here from Calgary. It's lovely to see that. And I suppose when you say how new it is, and yet that's in terms of recorded history, but then when you think of who lived there before settlers came,
Absolutely.
and I suppose modern cities are all based on grids. We don't have them in Ireland because ours are older.
Yeah.
But so who are the people on whose lands Calgary was built?
Yes. So Calgary was originally called Mokinstis, which means elbow. And again, it's
Because of the river.
where the river turned, right?
Mhm.
And it was an area of a meeting place where the rivers met, the
Okay.
confluence of the two of them. And so the lands here were in Treaty 7 lands. So Canada, all of the government made treaties with the Indigenous peoples. They haven't always honored them, but the treaties still stand, and we are in Treaty 7 land. And the Treaty 7 land is home to the Blackfoot Nation, is home to the Piikani, the Kainai, the Métis Region 3. Don't want to forget any, like Chiniki, Goodstoney. Like, so there's a group of Indigenous peoples that lived here. And they did, like, in terms of what they built, that wasn't part of a lot of the Plains people's heritage. Is like they were mobile people, so they moved with the herds. But there are some medicine wheels that exist, that were built and exist, and they're quite old, like very,
Mhm.
very old. But it's not like a stone circle, so they're not like upright stones. It's more like you could miss it easily because there's stones on the ground.
So what you're saying is these medicine wheels are physical wheels. I mean, I'm not talking about a wheel, but I know
Yeah, made out of stones. Yeah,
circular stone structures flat on the ground, not like what we have with our standing
yeah.
stone. Okay, and are there any carvings on these, or
Not in the medicine wheels that I'm aware of, but definitely there's petroglyphs, right?
okay?
In different areas, different areas of the province for sure. Yeah. So
Okay.
the history, of course, is very old here, but like many Indigenous peoples, their history is oral. And so, and when the settlers and colonizers came, it was their intent to stamp out Indigenous culture and to eradicate them. So, and they, worked hard at that. And so a lot of things are starting to be reclaimed, but it's still in the process, and that's part of the reconciliation that needs to happen in Canada and in other places that were colonized.
It's a long process and a big one. So,
Yeah,
and I imagine a very, very painful one as well. So, may there be a resolution, because
yes,
yeah.
it's an ongoing process.
So, and of course, you're a member of the Chinook Hills Grove
I
in
am.
Canada. Yeah, that's where we met, and we met at the Obod gathering in Janine and John's place. I know it's near Red Deer, but I'm not too sure the name of the place. She said it someplace. Where does she live?
Close to Rocky Mountain House,
Rocky Mountain, and of
which
course,
is west of Red Deer.
and that was quite a drive, wasn't it? Yes, from
A bit of a
Calgary.
drive. Yeah.
But I just loved the landscape there, the trees and the mountains, and that was just a wonderful. And Janina was a guest uh, back in the summer. Just beautiful to experience the different parts of Canada, and after the gathering, we went to Banff, and I couldn't believe it. It was like something out of a film, this blue sky and snow-capped mountains and the tall pine trees and the blue-green rivers and lakes. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. What a country. Just beautiful. So, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I feel fortunate to live here.
yeah. Very, very nice. So, I'm interested in your background.
Yes.
So, I suppose your spiritual background and how you found Druidry, and how does your spiritual background, if you have one, how that influences your Druidic practice today.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so like many people, when I was a kid, we went to church, an Protestant, I think, a Protestant church. The fact that I can't even remember tells you how important it was to me. And none of that ever resonated with me. So even as a young person, and it didn't really resonate with my parents. I think they did it just because they thought they were supposed to. And one of their friends was a pastor, so like we would go to this church, but nothing of it really felt real or like poignant to me. And I think in my adolescence, I sort of moved away from that, and really part of my issue with a lot of that, the Abrahamic faiths, has been the misogyny. So that, and in my adolescence, that reared really up really strongly, and so I rejected that entirely, and then sort of floated a bit in just, you know, enjoying nature, feeling connected to it, but not really having a name or anything for what I felt. I, this probably seems silly, but when I was a teenager, I read The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer, and I was enamored with that book. I've read it multiple times. I loved it so much. I think if I could have become a priestess in the Isle of Avalon, that would have been my path, my chosen path, right? So I loved that book so much. So I mean, I definitely see that as sort of an influence, all these layers that show up. And then in my early 20s, my husband at the time, he and I are since divorced, but my husband at the time, and I, we're searching for a pagan group. So I was exploring paganism at that time. And we joined a group. It was more like eclectic, but we were finding that the way that their rituals were held wasn't resonating well with us. So we ended up with a friend of ours sort of creating things that worked for us, right? And having a group. And we ran that for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. Yeah, it was a long time. And eventually when we got divorced, because we were running it, he sort of just decided that we were getting separated. So I was out, and this was what was going to be. So he was going to be that. And that was a deep wound. The loss of that for me was hugely, I'm not going to say traumatic. I'm not sure I'd call it traumatic, but it was a rupture.
Yeah.
For me. And it took me many, many years to come back. Before that happened, just a couple of years before that, I had been looking into Obad. I had been interested in doing the learnings and to join the Bardic grade. So I had the initial literature, the initial package that they send you, and I was considering it. Then I got divorced, everything ruptured, everything, it was like scorched earth is what it felt like. And then I needed to rebuild from that, and it took me, I was separated at the end of 2012, and it wasn't until I think 2021 that I was like, I need to come back. And that's when I decided to really do Obad. Yeah, so now I'm in my Druid grade, and I'm really enjoying it.
So what has Druidy done for you, or what kind of impact has it had on your life?
It's been deeply healing. Yeah, like I said, my divorce was extremely painful for me. There was a lot of conflict in my divorce. I have 4 children, and the divorce, not only was a downward turn economically for me, because I had been, when my children were young, I was at home with them, taking care of them while I was also doing music. So I was doing those 2 things and doing our spiritual group. And then when I got divorced, I obviously needed to work, but my initial degree wasn't the kind of degree that gets you a wonderful job. Like my initial degree is a Bachelor of Arts with a major in psychology. So that was my first degree. And so I ended up working at a wildlife rehabilitation society, which was incredible work, really interesting, but doesn't pay very well. And so like it felt like we were just clinging on for like many, many years, the kids and I. So we were just like holding on, doing the best we could. I ended up going back to school during that time. So I was working, had the kids, going back to school, which was a lot of work, did my master's degree. And my gift to myself when I finally like finished my accreditation was I'm doing OBOD. So it felt like a real reclamation. It was like a celebration and a reclamation. And this, like the pathway through it has been deeply healing. I have learned so much about myself, and it feels like I can breathe again. That's what it feels like.
Wow. So what was your, it strikes me that you've had many challenges. I mean, I think it's bad enough, for a marriage to go, and then your community to go, and then your trust in abundance, as it were, in that, your access to safety, as in financial comfort, all gone. So what was it that, I'm curious, what was it that pushed you to keep going? To work, to study, to look after your kids, all of that. What was it that?
Well, the kids, one. I'm grateful that I had my undergraduate degree early in my life, because I knew about what the impacts of divorce is for kids. Like I knew what that was, and I knew what it meant to create safety and how important that was. So that drove me through much of my decision making. Going back to school was incredibly difficult for me to do, not because I didn't want to learn. I love learning, but because music had been such a huge piece of what I wanted to do with my life. I feel like music is my calling, and I was doing that, but it wasn't paying the bills. So I had to make a choice and to say, like, look, I can't be pursuing musical things, working full time, raising kids, and doing a master's program. Like it's too much. Something has to give. So I said, music has to go to the side. You go over there until I'm done. Right. And it was like knowing that I needed to create stability, and I needed to create something better for the kids and I. Yeah.
Wow. And I do know you have a website, and I do know you are an amazing singer, and you have albums. So were they created after you got your master's, or were they from your earlier life, shall we say?
So I have 3 albums that were created before before I got divorced. One of them came out right as my marriage ended. So that one, it's so funny how life is, right? Like I had pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to get to to crawl my way up in the music industry, which is hard. And this album, it garnered me a Canadian folk music nomination, and so,
well done.
the one that came out then, but there was no way I could materialize anything out of it, because emotionally I was spent. I had to make sure that the kids were okay. I needed to right I couldn't make anything of it. So it's funny how that goes. And then one of my friends, it was around the time that I was completing my master's. She is also a musician. We'd done lots of concerts together, and she said, I would like to record some stuff with you. Like, could we just do an album in my bedroom, basically? And I was like, sure. So she recorded an album of songs for me, for which I'm profoundly grateful. Her name's Vanessa, and she's just, it was like, what a gift to give a friend, Right. And now I work at a post-secondary institution working as a psychologist, and it's a technical post-secondary institution. And so they have all sorts of courses like audio courses. And I took my first one in the summer and I'm doing my second one in March, and I'm just going to buy my own equipment and do it myself. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant.
So that's my goal. So, yeah, 3 before, 1 came out after, and then now I'm working so that I can do it whenever I want and create the way I want to create.
What a joy to have such independence. I believe that you performed at the same gig as Dave the Bard in Alberta a number of years ago. Is that true?
That is very true. Yeah, it was at the Sunwhale Festival. And I have an embarrassing story about that. So,
oh, go on, tell us.
Yes. So Dave had, when I was, like leading up to my divorce, when I was really like in my music, he had definitely played some of my music on Druidcast.
Oh,
and
brilliant.
He had written to me and like, absolutely. And then like, it's like my divorce addled my brain, and just like, all the contacts that you had, I don't know what happened to my brain. Something happened to it. And so I go to this, and I don't even think I recognized him as that person, right? Like, I don't think I made the connection between the two things. And then, yeah. And then once I was sort of getting back into it, I sent some kind of note. And then I was like, oh my God, I sent a note to him. He already knew me. He's already played my stuff. It was like I had never met him. So I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing for me, but like, whatever. Like, it's okay. It happens to all of us, I guess.
Oh, that is just brilliant. So, and we're going to hear some of your music later on. So obviously you're very creative anyway. Did you, or have you found that, when you were on the Bardic grade, that your creative flow, your creativity, or your Imas, your Awen, it developed, it grew, it changed or did you find another way of accessing your creativity to the way you did before you joined the order, or was it the same?
I felt like it was like welcoming an old friend home.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. The Bardic grade felt very reviewing, like stuff that I mostly knew. Like the guided visualizations brought some new imagery and symbolism to me, but it was like, it's like I had needed to pack away pieces of me to keep them safe, or to keep them to protect them in some way. And I packed them in a chest and like strapped it down, and then like had it hidden in a closet, and it was like taking out the chest and opening it again, is what it felt like.
Oh, that's a lovely image.
Yeah. So in some ways that felt very expansive, right? Because it felt like my life was feeling a little bit cramped, and so it felt like it opened, it like created breath and movement. My master's degree was, of course, very intellectual, so a lot of research, a lot of studying, a lot of writing essays and coursework, and all that type of learning uses that part of your brain and that part of you, that intellectual part, which is great to stimulate. But my accreditation exam was incredibly difficult. So it's called the EPPP. It's the accreditation exam for all North America for psychologists. And it's an incredibly difficult exam to pass. Many people fail it. And so I studied for 6 months to pass it. And I definitely felt by the end of that, like I have too much psychology in my life. I need less psychology and more of some other stuff. Right. So I need to balance out all that intellectual piece with something a little bit more holistic, and with a little bit more like magic and spiritual connection. And especially while there's like lots of pockets of different people, I've met some wonderful psychologists who have very holistic points of view. I should have become a social worker, honestly, a clinical social worker. It's more in alignment with how it's more in line with how I view community and how because a lot of the psychology, I think, in North America is heavily focused on this like evidence-based cognitive behavioral, like this kind of stuff, which doesn't resonate with me at all. And so it was like I needed to latch into something like a little bit deeper and more with a little bit more meaning, and that was less quantitative, so to speak.
Yes. So, how do you, we have a mental health interest group within the order.
Yes, I've joined it.
You joined it. And
Yes.
it's really interesting because, Philip is a psychologist, I'm a psychologist, and so much of the GWERS, have foundations in a psychological, working with psyche, not so much theology bit, but the psyche bit, the spirit, the soul.
Yeah.
Have you found now, because you're in a school, a way to weave your way, with your, because you talk about things being so quantitative, how do you bring the quality in, as in qualitative, your creative piece, your artistic, spiritual? Is there a space to do that in where you work now?
There is. I'm extremely fortunate that one of the things that they liked about my resume when they hired me here, I've only been here, like it'll be a year at the end of January. And one of the things they liked about me was that I have a background in the expressive arts. So I've done training in that. And I'm currently doing training in somatic approaches. So I can bring that, and because they like that, they've created space for me to use it. So we have, they call it the Zen Den. It's like a little space where we can run sort of art activities and workshops, but it's intended to be like a calm, meditative kind of space for students. And so I run workshops there, like expressive arts ones. So where we get to connect into art and how that, like just a completely different way of like engaging the psyche, really. So I'm very fortunate. And then also over the summer, I was moved into a position where I'm also doing hours in our Indigenous lodge. So I have counseling hours there. So, and I do it in the lodge. So we have a specific space for Indigenous students here, and it's called Natoy-Sepoys, which means holy wind. And so I go there once a week and have counseling hours for students. And they also asked me to do a series of wellness workshops, and I decided like I based them on like seasonal wisdom. So we're moving through that, and so and in that space, it's particularly lovely and rich and like so yummy because they're very interested in having earth-based knowledge and earth-based learnings. So obviously, I'm not going to appropriate what they're doing, but I can bring my druidry into that, and I can honor that, right? Like, and say like, this is where this teaching came from.
Wow, because I was just going to ask you before you said that, how do you engage with, or how do the students engage with you when they see you, you're white, you're not First Nations, and, are you coming from a completely different planet? But somehow you're saying that what you can do is bring your druidry, and that's where you can meet.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes. I mean, obviously, I'm white, right? So there's no getting around that. And I think just honoring that, and part of being an OBOD has been connecting into the roots, my roots, right? Because obviously I have a deep interest in like the Indigenous worldview and the Indigenous paradigms of spirituality and thought. But it's not my place to take on those, right? I can learn from them, but it's not my place to take them on. So connecting into like some of my own heritage has been a way to feel at peace, right? Because it's an odd feeling to be a settler and like to be a settler here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can feel. I was born here, so there's that. There's feeling like I'm born here, I belong here, I belong to the land, and also the acknowledgement that like like part of the history here has been like genocide and
Mhm.
oppression. And so how do we live in that, right? And so I find connecting into my own heritage helps me have a nice anchor from which I can sit with, witness, participate, listen, and bring my own wisdom to the table as well.
Wow. Because when we were at the gathering in Leslieville, is it now? Um, there was one woman, one member of the order who's First Nations, and I asked her. I said, "Oh my God, what was it that brought you to OVOD?" And she said, "Because of the meetings, the shared values." And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, wow, that's so lovely. And this is one of the gifts I think of Druidry in. Because I've lived a lot in Africa, and I've worked with healers there, and if you look at an indigenous worldview and you look at a Druidic worldview, they are very much in alignment. They have lots of meeting points, and that is a great place for people of different cultures to sit down and meet,
Mm-hmm.
rather than look like, I'm the colonizer and you're the colonizer, so that people can come together and share things. I think
Yeah.
that's quite beautiful.
And I really think a lot of like psychological work is like obviously listening, but being willing to step into someone else's world, right?
Yeah.
Not forcing them to come into my world or saying you have to conform into like good mental health, right? But being more like, how can I move into your world and sort of look around a bit and like let's wayfind together in here.
Yeah.
Um,
Sean, who's in Calgary, says there's a great Indigenous concept of two-eyed seeing, incorporating Indigenous ways of knowing with Western ways of knowing, and that OBOD embraces in its own context. I worked with the writings of a healer, Malidoma Somé from Burkina Faso,
mm-hmm.
and he lived in the US, though brought up in Africa. And his name means he who must make friends with the enemy. And his elders said you need to be the bridge between the Indigenous world and the modern world, because, well, Indigenous ways are going. It's very hard
Mm-hmm.
to sustain that once there's interference with the outside world. But to have that bridge so that you can then embrace the two. So, you and I are two Druids, and we've got Druids listening to us. And we're doing this because of modern technology.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we are aware of the importance of landscape, importance of working with the elements and finding creativity through our connection with all beings in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about managing both. It's never either or, it's both and, but
Mm-hmm.
having a balance between the two. And I think, your students, I'm sure they feel lucky to have somebody like you who can meet them some way with an earth-based understanding. And it's really interesting when you talk about, mental health and, what does good mental health look like?
Mm-hmm.
I know when I was studying psychology, we were talking about psychosis, and that if Jesus was alive now, he'd probably been diagnosed with psychosis because he believed he was the Son of God. Those kind of things. And, people who are seers, who have, the second sight, who experience things that regular people don't experience. And that can be seen as abnormal or whatever it is. And yet, being able to step into someone else's shoes and see it from their, which is what psychotherapy is about.
Mm-hmm.
And genuinely about, that's trying to fix somebody and getting them to think whatever. I don't know what normal is. Because it's funny when we talk about normality. I've never had a client who felt they were normal. I don't know, do you have any clients?
Well,
I've never felt quite normal. And so it's really interesting.
And to me, it's never about like people being normal. It's about like, are things functioning, right? Like, are you able to have the things that you need? Are you able to, have a job if you need a job? Are you able to like be present with your children if you have children? Are you able to be functional in the ways that you want to be functional? And if so, great. Like, I don't have any problem. And if not, okay, let's figure out how we can create more function, right? So to me, it's not about anyone having to think a specific thing or behave a certain way. It's just, there's so many different ways to be.
Yeah, I mean, if what you're doing in your life is working, stay doing it. If it's not working, try something else.
Yeah, exactly.
And who's to say what works for me may not work for you? But it's it's not always about resolving all your trauma, because I remember being Babette Rothschild. She's an American therapist, trauma informed. I went to a few of her workshops here in Ireland, and I remember once she said, hands up here, anyone who's had childhood trauma that hasn't resolved it. And of course, her hand goes up, and so does most in the room. She said, that's fine. You don't have to have it resolved. The question is, are you able to function? Do you get on in your life? Can you lead a life has meaning for you or fruitful? Yeah. It's not about pain-free. It's not about, the sun always shining. It's about being able to embrace and having the resources to deal with whatever event comes your way, and being strong enough that. Sean says, questioning sanity is a healthy exercise. It's the folks who don't need a second look. Krishnamurti once said, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to it in a sick society, or I'd add a crazy world. Absolutely so true. I mean, when people try to explain what depression is, some say it's actually an appropriate reaction to a shitty world, among other ones. But it's, and Sylvia says, there's nothing normal in the US at this time. Chaos and turmoil. I'm grateful for the strength I find in my spirit path. Absolutely. And I think this is a time where we, dig deep down and ground ourselves on the earth. And I think this is one of the beauties of an earth-based spiritual path, to keep us grounded. And, there's so many anchors in the landscape, if we find, and to find our own anchors in whatever landscape we find ourselves, so that we stay grounded. Because I think it's very hard when there's chaos, and then there's another human rights abuse happening in the places where we assumed everything was safe. We live in a democracy. We're modern, we're educated, we're sophisticated, and everything is safe, and reason will prevail. And all the human rights abuses and all, they hand over, they're in other people's countries, but not in ours. Now all of that's being challenged. It's like, wake up. There's a madness there. So how do we stay grounded?
Yeah. And how do we stay present? And I think in order to care about something, we need to be in relationship with it in some way. And so in order to care for our planet, we need to be in relationship with it. If we're not in relationship with it, why would we care? Right.
And this is one of the hard things is there's so much fragmentation. And when you look at various governments and how their policies are is to divide people. And this is where we need to wake up as ourselves and stop fighting with each other. Mm-hmm. The migrant or the immigrant isn't causing the problem. I don't know what they say in Canada, but here no housing, no this, no that, and as well, because there's migrants. And it's like, well, Irish people we've 80 million Irish diaspora all over the world. If that's not migration, I don't know what is. And then when you look at North America, the majority of the people there are migrants, and that it's about staying in solidarity with each other and looking at pointing to where the source of all these problems are. I think that's really, really important. And what does Sean say? What you pay attention to determines what you miss, and we've made some blind spots for ourselves indeed. So there's a question there. I'm going to leave it for you because I've retired now. What do you ladies make of Jungian shadow work, especially when self-applied? I see the idea of often misused or misunderstood. I see the idea often misused or misunderstood in the pagan community. I'm going to hand that one to you.
Okay. Well, so I don't have a lot of training in Jungian, so we'll start by making that caveat. But I mean, I actually really would be interested in getting more, because I find the processes to be quite fascinating. And I listen to this podcast, this Jungian Life, and so go listen to them, because they probably have some answers to this. But I find the shadow is part of us, right? So we need, it's about acknowledging, accepting, looking in places that we may not want to look, and coming to a sort of peace and a balance, right? It's not something that we get rid of or destroy. It's like a peace. We must
befriend it. I suppose, of course, it's hard to see our shadow because, well, if the sun is behind us, we can see it in front, but it's sometimes that part of ours that isn't hidden. But it's about being aware and having a good look, and not about cutting it off. So often, I was brought up a Roman Catholic, and the idea is, what is it if your right hand does bad things, cut it off, that kind of stuff. And it's not about that. It's having a good look and befriend it and see. Because I think it's through awareness.
It's through integration to me, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think a lot of pain and suffering, and a lot of, if you want to call it what we would call sometimes mental illness, is about trying to not feel certain things, trying to not think certain things, trying to parse out and segment, and really we need to move more towards integration. Right.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is my past life, of course, but people say, if people knew what I was thinking, and I've had those thoughts myself. I can't say this to anybody because they would think I'm mad, or I'm not a nice person. Those kind of things. And yet we all have thoughts, and we need to have those thoughts, no matter how awful they are, because unless we play with the ideas, when we're not aware, then we act out and we do damage. But when we know what we are capable of and say, okay, I could possibly do this, or I think that, and it's like, well, what do I do about it? That's a thought. Something else is an action. It doesn't mean I have to act on it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really, really important.
And the more you have thoughts and you start to think, boy, that's an interesting thought, or where did that come from? Then already we're having this sort of meta knowledge, and starting to be like, okay, I wonder whether that was just something fleeting passing through, or if that has something I need to look at that maybe is going on for me that I might need to sit with for a little bit, right? But our world is so fast paced, and I think is not doing us any favors. We have all these screens. We have who doom scrolls? Like, does everyone doom scroll? Like, it's such a problem, and it moves us away from sitting quietly with things. And I think we need to sometimes just sit quietly with things and mull them around. It doesn't mean we do anything with it. I think we just need to sometimes sit with things and let them percolate down, or even sit quietly and let the things that need to sort of rumble downwards into the unconscious to just do that, right?
Absolutely, because so often we get triggered, and now we're subjected to so much material all the time, and you can easily get, like, what's your first reaction when you discover, your friend was raped? It's like, I'm not going to say what my first reaction would be, but that's my reaction, and it's like, well, it doesn't mean I'm going to act on it. I need to allow that anger, that horror, that rage, vengeful thoughts, all of that to come through, and sit with that, and then come to a place of accommodation. And unfortunately, because everything is so fast and news comes so quickly, one after another, and like when you're talking that expression, that expression wasn't there 15 years ago, doom scrolling. I used to do that, mulling in my head, ruminating, and I had to learn not to do that. And now it's very easy on a phone just to keep doing this and feeding it, about actually stopping and saying, okay, no more. I'm going to sit with this and see where it goes. Because we have understandable reactive responses to events.
Yeah.
And
But
then it's about sitting with it and say, okay, that's an understandable reaction. It doesn't mean I have to respond. But if you have a keyboard in front of you, it's like, oh, it's just so easy to respond.
And we're rewarded for quick responses. When you think about how they talk about, oh, we have to respond to this immediately. Like, you think about like the news cycle, everything happens so quickly. The response needs to happen immediately, which means we're not creating that space between thought, feeling, and action. And when we don't have any space, that's a not good place to be, I don't think, when our thought, feeling, and action are right beside each other.
No. It's kind of moderation. And so what does Sean say? A disturbed body of water does not clearly reflect sunlight. The silt needs to settle for things to be clear. And I think that is a lovely analogy. It is just so, so true.
Mm-hmm.
And Gunter says no response is a kind of response, too right. However, it's not necessarily a no response, Gunter, for me. I've had to learn, what I do now is I'm not responding quickly. I'm going to take my time until I have calmed down, and then I'm going to reflect before I respond, so that I'm actually responding in a measured, considered, thoughtful way. Some people may be angry that my response rate is too slow. But it's like, no, I will respond in my own. I'm learning that to respond in my own time.
And I think a lot of the OBOT is that way too, because sure, like, you get all your lovely packages every month, and there can be this feeling like, ooh, I need to get on it, I'm behind, or right. But the idea isn't get through it as quickly as possible. The idea is do a thing and then settle with it, sit with it, see how it wants to live and move and change inside of me, if it does at all, right? And I might need to do it again, just to again connect in and see where that's at, and going at your own pace. And for some people that might be quicker, and for other people it might take a long time. But I think our world is so fast paced that we could do with a little bit of slowing it down. And we see it in people's nervous systems, right? From a psychological perspective, people's nervous systems end up being like frazzled, right? Like they're so like this, all the right. It's so tense and so, right. And what do we do with that in therapy? We slow it down, right? Like that's our job, is to say, whoa, what's happening in your body, right? Like bring it back down, calm it all down, right? And then we'll continue on, but we need to slow it down and bring it down into a slower pace. And I think that's something we could use in everyday life too. Slow it down a little bit.
And within Druidry, it's about stillness, and it's about sitting with the trees or sitting with an element. And of course, Druidry, it's not a qualification. You don't become a qualified Druid, and there's no rush. And so many people have done the Bardic grade over and over and over again. And people have done all 3 grades, and then they go back to the beginning again, because and then the person that goes the second time, they're a different person.
Yeah.
You engage with the Gwers in a different way. And I think sometimes in this world, we're novelty junkies. It's like, no, give me something new. I want something else. It's like, hold on a second. There are practices that are tried and true. Mm-hmm. Tried and tested, is that the one? That work. And you can vary them. But these ones can work really well. And when you revisit them, you're a different person when you're going back again to revisit those. And they can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. When I was coming back into my spirituality, of course, there's always this urge to, well, I need a bunch of stuff, right? Which you don't need a bunch of stuff, but that's sort of the urge. And then I had this clear message in my head: you have enough stuff. So yeah, I have enough stuff. And then I find all these little things that I'd collected over the years, and oh yeah, this thing, oh yeah, I do have everything I need is right here. I already had it. I just was convincing myself that I couldn't do a thing until I somehow accumulated the right things, right? And that's just not true at all, right? It's the sort of tricks that our mind plays on us. Thing with the novelty. I need to have novelty. And it's like, actually, what you need is some stillness. Actually, you might need a little bit of rest. Actually, you might need to just breathe with the trees for a while and move with the flow of the river, and right, like listen to the bird song. And maybe that's actually what you need. Your mind is not telling you something that's real.
I remember years ago, I mean, I speak quickly, I still do, and I walk fast. But I remember I was in my 30s and I was just getting into a spirituality that wasn't based in Catholicism. And I was in a hurry, you know, I want to be up there. I want to be not down here on the earth. And I remember meeting somebody who said, "You're so fast." And I thought, what are you talking about? You know, you need to slow down. And I thought, no, that's so boring. I don't want to be doing that, blah, blah, blah. Now. And I remember starting doing, you know, meditations and hating it, and hating sitting still and focusing on my breath and just being still in the moment. And I thought, what is this for? What's the purpose? And I was doing it because I was going to workshops, and I'm not going to object. I'm compliant and I'm nice. And then suddenly it clicks and I go, now I have it. Oh my goodness. But I had to keep doing it and struggling with this stillness business. And then suddenly a day it just fits into place and I go, I love this. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't have got to that place if I hadn't persisted with this apparent boring being with me in the moment, being quiet, because I want to be out there doing interesting things, not stuck in this awful place with my breath. And now when I focus on my breath, I find it so healing. Mm-hmm. You know, but that has to be done. And there was no point anyone telling me that. Well, they did tell me. And I didn't know what they were talking about. Feel it. And I think that was just lovely.
Absolutely. There's a reason it's been in every sort of healing path on the planet, these pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So how about a song?
Absolutely. All right.
So I'm going to bring you on this one. So this is from your website, Andrea. We couldn't manage the technology of her sending me a thing. So anyway, over to you.
Okay. So I'm going to play a song. It's from my album Heartwood. And the song is called The Children of Lear, based on the myth of the Children of Lear. Right. So, I will play it. Hopefully everyone can hear it.
Take flight o'er the hills, beating the time to the swan's final song, sung so sweet, sung for so long, as they leave rocky shores, flying west with the sun. And I watch from the land I love my past come undone. Children of Lear, where have you gone? The hills, they are bare, but echo your song, The stones silently fall, and where do I belong? On the wall of fairy mound, a silence falls, mocking the time when the swan's haunting song carried far, resounding strong. In their stories they drift Lost in the waves of time, the island it is safe. Oh, children of life, where have you gone? The hills they are there, what echo your song, the stones silently fall. Where do I belong? When the bells so loudly toll, an anthem rung, drowning the sound of the swan's final song. Silver notes fading withdrawn, and change swiftly comes when the wings of the dawn. The voices once heard are gone. Where are they, love? Oh, children of life, where have you gone? The hills they are bare, what echo your song, oh, children of life, where have you gone? The hills they are bare, what echo your song, the stones silently fall. And where do I belong? Do I belong?
Wow, that was just so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Love the sense of sorrow and loss captured with such elegance. And I've put your website in the chat. That is so beautiful, Andrea. Splendid music. Blessed be the lark song giving rise to the morning sun.
Oh, beautiful. That's
So beautiful. Your voice and your music is lovely, almost dreamlike. Thank you. Just wonderful. You have an incredible voice. It is so, so clear.
Thank you.
So, we're going to come to the end of our time, but what concerns you about the modern world?
What concerns me about the modern world? Wow. I'm concerned about disconnection.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think about, like any other person, like we talk about this stillness and we talk about, but like any other person, I have moments where I have a lot of fear about the rhetoric that's happening in North America, like in Alberta. There's similar rhetoric at times to the United States. It's very scary, right? And I worry about the world that my kids will live in. I worry about climate change, right? Like I have all these worries, but I think, what does it all boil down to? It boils down to people not feeling connected to themselves, to other people, to the landscape. So I think that's what I worry about in the modern world. I worry about how our devices have sort of taken over our attention, taken over so many aspects of our lives, and have moved us further away from the things we know are real and true. There's so much. Like I can't. Every time I see something like a picture on social media, I don't know if it's real. Like, and that is a scary proposition, to be like, I see something, but I don't know if it's real. I don't know if this was made by AI. I don't know what this is. But I do know when I go and sit by the river that is real. And I do know that when the magpies are calling outside my window, that is real. And so I worry that we're getting disconnected from what we know to be real. And it's leaving us in these isolated islands that we don't know what to do with.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember to check the magpies outside our window. So I was at our winter gathering at the weekend, and I was having dinner with friends, and one friend took a photograph of me with somebody else, and he said he has this app just for fun. It's an AI app that can make it appear that I'm doing something, and it did. So myself and this person were sitting facing the camera, and the AI manipulated so it looked like I was kissing him.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd said he had done it with a friend at work, and she was beside a Christmas tree, and it showed her destroying the Christmas tree. And it's like, the randomness of how they wanted to represent us was absolutely horrifying. And again, he was just showing, like, this is how mad this is. And but that thing about being out there and touching a tree or looking at a flower and knowing what's real. So, Maxantish, I don't know if I'm saying your name properly. Yes, we must work together to heal Mother Earth. There's so much fear and pain around. And Brian says, swans are one of the few animals we'd have an ancient traditional taboo on eating, like dog, cat, hook. This is, okay. Well, I'm not too sure where that comes in. But so it's lovely. So Haley says, the music immediately brought me down from a high stress state after finals ended this morning. Thank you for sharing. So here is how technology works beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is listening from, hopefully you're comfortable in front of the screen and you're hearing that and it just brings you down. So it has wonderful capabilities. I think we forget that we can use it rather than allowing ourselves to be used by it.
Yeah.
And it's both and. It's like being out there, touching the earth beneath your feet. Using it's funny, that music was absolutely real. I mean, beautiful. I'm trying to think. Yeah, using it outside your senses to know what's real, because I think it is a real concern.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, given all those concerns, what gives you hope?
Well, what gives me hope is people like the people here, right? It's people who are like, no, I know it's important to connect. I know it's important to come into relationship with trees and plants and live in my landscape and breathe my landscape and be part of my landscape. I know that that's important. And I see it every day with the people that I see, the clients that I see, their hope, we all share similar hopes. We all share similar dreams to be heard, to be seen, to belong to, right? Like, these are human conditions. And I feel that nothing can take that from us. So we will seek to connect it. We will seek to make those connections, even when it feels hard.
Yeah. Thank you. Sean Clancy's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sharing it now. As you have such a profound connection to nature, would love to know how your daily spiritual practices and nature connections vary with the seasons, especially with such dramatic seasons as you have there.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I try to park my car so that I walk to work, right? So I can't walk to work from where I live. Be quite a long walk, but I park so that I can walk. So it's not like the most beautiful of all nature to the way I walk, but there are trees and along the pathway, and there's always those little moments, and I try really hard to stop and hold on, just breathe with a moment, right? Just be with a moment. So, and every day it's different, right? So the sun's been arising later and later and later, right? So sometimes when I'm like, there was a certain point where I was walking to work and there was the sun right in the trees, and it just illuminating like the frost in just that perfect crystalline way. And so I just take a moment and I stop and let it soak into me for a moment, and then continue on. It doesn't have to be a long moment. I do have like a altar space in my house. I'm not at it every day, I'll be real. So like that is not a daily practice, but I do come to it often. I have a space in my very, very tiny yard. I find even just like I live in one side of a duplex, so my yard space is incredibly tiny, but I've planted trees, and every day when I see my trees that have grown, and they've grown incredibly tall. I planted aspens, so they've grown in like a microsecond, like so quickly, and it just gives me so much joy, like to see them and feel them and have those like their living spirit like surrounding me. At least once a week, I try to walk. There's a park by my house that I like love very much. It's a park that used to be a gravel pit. It's just up the road from my house, and it's on the river. I live very close to the river, and it was a reclaimed space. So, and I love this. If we talk, what gives me hope? This place gives me hope. It was it was a gravel pit when I was a teen. It was a gravel pit. And I remember walking down to the river through the gravel pit because I lived in another area close to there when I was a teen. And now it's been reclaimed. Developers wanted it, and the city went to the Supreme Court of Canada to have it as a park, and they won. And so they have it as a park. It's a reclaimed space, so it's wetlands, and you can see like deer in there. There's a moose that lives in there. Beavers live in there. Muskrats, like millions of birds. It's just such a beautiful space, and just to go down there and listen to the river singing, like I feel so hopeful. So I try to go once a week.
That sounds lovely, because it's really interesting, when like gravel pits or quarries, destruction of the landscape, and then when it's no longer used as that, maybe they've taken everything they can, and the sense to allow it to reclaim itself. I have friends, when my husband was alive, we used to visit Manchester a lot. And I remember friends taking us to a park with a lake, a small lake, which was a quarry pit. They allowed it to fill up, and there's fish in there, and there's trees, and it's just so beautiful. And I thought, wow, that we have to mind nature. We are nature, and yet the earth will still survive. It's that ability to reclaim itself and to return to its own wildness is incredible. And how wise of your city council to say, no, we are not going to develop this. We're going to turn it into a park. And then when you're talking about your beavers and your moose and your deer and your muskrats and all the things that were never there before, well, they might have been there before the gravel pit was taken or used, and that they come back. I just think, what an ability, or the magic or the power of nature to restore itself and for life to continue.
Well, and that's hope to me, is that something could be decimated and it can still come back. And so that's true for us too.
Yes, indeed. And when you think of, we say, I was in Peru in 2009 and went to see Machu Picchu, that had been rediscovered in the 1930s, because when the Incas, whatever happened, the civilization died out, and then nature took over and covered everything with trees, etc. And then somebody was looking around and found this, and then they, uncovered it again. You kind of, wow. And I just see myself, I've got somebody working in the garden for the last number of months, just to make more light in the garden so that other things can grow. But I can see how it can take over. I have a polytunnel, and I've seen the blackthorn trees come under, and they start coming to grow inside. And it's like, no, that's not your place. You have to leave room for your plant brothers and sisters. But I'm fascinated. Here I am where I'm living, and I can see how things come back. So, and of course, they're allowed until I say, no, I've had enough now. I'm permissive, and then when you overdo it, I kind of draw a line. And I say leave room for your plant brothers and sisters. So it's not that I'm a destructive force. It's like fair is fair, you know.
Mhm.
So, but that is lovely, and it's just brilliant that to have that, and you're able to go there every year. Somebody said, Morgan says, how wonderful! I grew up near a park called the Gravel Pits, but never made the connection with the name until now. Isn't that lovely? And it's really interesting when there's a place name and not thinking about it, where the name comes from. I'm very interested in now because our names were anglicized, the place names. And in a stupid way, either phonetically or a bad translation. And when I look at the Irish name, I find, so that's what that means, because there must have been. So there's a place in Dublin called Terenure. What does it mean? Cheer on Ure, the land of the yew tree.
Oh,
so
lovely.
there's so many. And so when you look at the Irish, then you begin to discover, this is what the magic of the land is.
Mhm.
Would people like to hear another song before we finish? It's a bit slow, the delay. Okay, I think we should.
All right.
Do you know what you're going to play?
Let me pick something. Sure.
Yep, there's yes, absolutely, for your
Okay.
Oscailga and in English as well. Great.
So I'm going to say this poorly because I'm not good at Welsh, but the song is called Hiraeth, which, like, English doesn't have a word for it, but this longing for that which you once knew.
Oh, okay, lovely.
Yeah.
When home is a fragment of parchment, home is a wisp on the wind. When all that anchors is a banner inside, words without a place. Everything changes, leaves kiss the ground. Everything wears down the decay of sound. That longing so desperate it tears you in two. Here is the song in my memory once knew. The branched paths lie twisted and broken, roots clutch our forsaken time. When plant calls to wander unsated, trying soul to fly. Everything changes, waves kiss the ground. Everything lives down the decay of sound. That longing so desperate, your bones torn in two. Here is the song in my memory once knew. Remember the scent
That is so beautiful, Andrea. Absolutely wonderful. Magical voice.
Thank you.
Jane says we need an Andrea, Janina, and John collab. Absolutely.
Yes, I love that.
And Sean has a question. That's beautiful. Do you do your instrumentation too? Absolutely haunting.
So I play piano, I play violin, I sing, I do my own backup vocals. But those albums, I did not do other instrumentation. I didn't even do violin on any of them. So the ones that had violin on those ones, like none of that was mine. But my intent going forward is to do quite a lot more of my own instrumentation. But I have worked with some like incredible musicians. So I'm really always grateful for their contributions because they're just wonderful.
Well, there's some lovely comments. Thank you so much, Moran Tang. And then there's longing, craving, itch, intention. That's from Brian. I can't. Luga Minacht. That's Gaelic, so I'll be pronouncing it like an Irish person. That was lovely. So strong yet wistful too. And Sean says, making my cleaning the kitchen epic. Lovely song, says Morgan. Gave me fantasy vibes in the best way.
Well, that's so kind. Everyone's comments, I just love them. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for joining me today and taking time. Oh, it's your lunch break and you've gone over, haven't you?
It's okay. I planned my admin time after. So
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been such a joy talking to you, Andrea. So I just allow you to say goodbye to everybody there before we
thank you so much for joining. It's been such a privilege and an honor. I'm so grateful to be part of the OBOD community. Again, it's filled my heart and my spirit in a way that like I could never repay what has been given to me. So I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to send you to the green room and we can come back and look at the comments. So I just don't go away. So thank you all so much for joining me this evening, this afternoon, this morning, or wherever you are, or if you're watching a recording of this chat. So it was a lovely conversation and just wonderful singing. So I look forward to seeing you next week for another Fireside Chat. In the meantime, be well. Slán go fóill.